They said marriage bed is sweet forever, but Rachel's home has turned to a wooden bench. No sugar, no honey, only duty. Despite being as beautiful as roses, Bright no longer finds his lovely wife sexually attractive.
Please stop. How should I tell you that I'm tired? Like, I'm tired for crying out loud.
This is all I get anytime I want your touch. When did I become a wall breaker in this house?
I'm not saying that you're a wall breaker. I'm just saying that I don't have the strength or whatever it takes to give you what you want now. Besides, I'm going to pick my late brother's children from tomorrow and I should be resting by now, please.
Okay, good night.
Yeah, good night.
Bright had just lost his brother, and his late brother's children will be moving to his house as he had been saddled with their care until his nephew comes of age. The arrival of Bright's nieces and nephew would further destroy every fabric that held Rachel and her husband together. Not long after their arrival, Jane, the eldest of Bright's nieces who had turned 19, started sneaking out at the middle of the night. But this time, not without being noticed by Abigail, who had trailed her the previous night and again pretended to be asleep while she sneaked out of the room. Abigail won't further pretend she hasn't been aware of her sister's actions in that house. For this purpose, she decided to stay up until her elder sister would return to the room and probably confront her over her recent movements whilst others were fast asleep. In about half an hour after Jane had left the room, she returned with the hope of finding Abigail sleeping, only to meet her anxiously waiting for her return to the room.
Where are you coming from by this time of the night?
I don't understand. I want to take some fresh air outside.
You want to take some fresh air?
Yes, now.
What I don't understand is the difference between the air in this room and the air in Uncle Bride's room.
Jesus Christ.
What?
Please, wait. Besides, how long have you been watching me?
Doesn't matter how long I've been watching you.
See, don't you ever in your life ever mention this to anybody. Did you hear me? Don't you ever. In fact, see this your silly stupid mouth. Better glue it and pretend you didn't say anything. Uncle Bride's room.
What surprised Abigail the most was that her fragile and timid sister took pride in what she was doing with their uncle. Jane's secret affair with Bright didn't sit well with her. She would never make sense out of such. However, would have to keep quiet as she had been instructed by her elder sister. Meanwhile, some other nights, after a warm bath, Rachel would wear a nice perfume, and in a hot gown, she would wait on the bed for her husband, Bright. Despite her efforts, Bright never finds her attractive joined with his hidden romance with his late brother's daughter, Jane.
Hey, baby. Baby. Even if it's just the car. My baby, please. It's me, your wife, your love. Please. I am begging you. Please. Even if it's just one round. Please. I know you miss me and I miss you too, baby.
Rachel's appeal fell into deaf ears as her husband was never going to consent and would rather walk out of the room. Loneliness had settled into her bones, but it wasn't just the absence of company. It was the ache of untouched skin, the quiet hunger for intimacy that gnawed at her in silence. Rachel suffered his refusal to make love to her until she accidentally bumped into naked Austin.
Abigail. Oh my God, what are you doing here, Austin?
My room, there's no water. So I had to use this one and ask Abigail and Jen to go to my room.
Oh, I'm so sorry. When Abigail comes, tell her I said she should stay in my shop with the girls, okay?
Rachel left the room but couldn't stop thinking of what she had just seen. She lost touch with her purpose of looking for Abigail and occupied her head with some fantasies. Obviously, Austin's physical appearance and age fooled her, while in between his legs lies what should be ascribed to older men and maybe bigger than what was between the legs of Bright. She wanted him, wanted the weight of his hand on her skin, wanted him to claim the hunger she could no longer hide. Months on, Abigail was ready to go back to school, and her uncle had asked her to pen down all the necessary requirements.
Okay, this is the list.
Yes.
This is the list I have to pay for. Then
When you get there now, one small boy that contributes nothing will be feasting on you like last supper.
Uncle, I don't understand what you mean.
Eh?
I don't understand.
How will you understand? I don't expect you to understand. Well, I'll go through the list. But before the day runs out, I will see what I can do.
While stunned by her uncle's words, she thanked him and left the room bearing in mind her uncle's evil intentions. The words that fell from her uncle's mouth were not just careless, they were steeped in reckless blend of immorality, the kind of statement no man in his right senses should ever utter. By the time Abigail returned to her room, she met her elder sister crying bitterly for reasons she had no idea of. Shading the hatred she had long developed for Jane, she hurriedly asked her why she was crying.
I'm begging you, please. Don't do it, please. I'm begging you.
Don't do what? What are you talking about? I don't understand.
While her sister's sudden cry came as a shocker to her, Abigail was forced to pick interest in her sister's ordeal and further compelled her to speak. Jane didn't start sleeping with their uncle out of her will. It was Bright who had become an incest that forced her into it. With a spirit unburdened, untouched by worry like water finding its path, Jane had gone to meet her uncle in his private room in a bid to discuss the well-being of herself and siblings. But then, Bright wouldn't stop touching her. Bright was a man who wore the mask of a caring uncle, but behind his eyes lurked an unsettling hunger. His hands would hover, reaching for excuses to brush against her, ignoring her discomfort. He carried himself with the weight of authority, cloaking his intentions in the role of a protector. But she was only a fragile girl, caught between fear and defiance. Her trembling voice the only shield she had against a man who should have been her guardian.
He threatened me. He said if I should tell anybody about this, he's going to send us out. And if
In her fragility lay a quiet strength, but also the terrible risk of being silenced by someone she should have trusted. Only a demonic uncle would subject his niece to such a cruel act. Inasmuch as Abigail couldn't wrap her head around it, she only realized she had hated Jane for the wrong reasons. She apologized to her sister and promised her she was never going to let their uncle have his way on her. While Abigail would have to find a way to deal with what could become of her in the future, Austin had grown so fearless to do the unthinkable. Everyone had gone out of the house on that fateful day except Austin and his uncle's wife, Rachel, who was seeing a TV program in the living room.
Auntie, you just have to stop seeing me like you're Austin. I'm not a vibrant young man with blood running through my veins.
And what do you mean by that? Have you gone mad? How dare you tell me such a thing? What is wrong with you, you stupid boy? Will you get out of here?
Austin, however, left her presence unbothered. Whatever the clown had said to her was quite provocative, hence her reactions. Maybe such could be expected from anyone in her shoe. She could never imagine he would be bold enough to say those words to her ears. Rachel wasn't going to let that slide. Puzzled over the audacity of Austin, as her anger had taken advantage of her, one would think she would bring down the roof over her head immediately. But then, seconds after Austin had left, her fury subsided. She could no longer hold or escape the truth standing before her. They were the only ones at home at the moment. What if Austin could bridge the gap by assisting his uncle to perform his manly duty? To this end, she would invite Austin as she returned to her matrimonial bed. Austin, who has been hopeful, showed up with the speed of light wearing a strong face, priding himself like a champion basking in the glory of a gold medal victory in an Olympic sprint.
I really want to apologize for the way I reacted initially. We're the only ones home for now. Why don't you show me the stuff your mother?
Like a hyena caught between laughter and hunger, Austin's smile crept out before the strike. His grin was the bashful mask of a wrestler who already knows the match is his. Whatever had come over Austin did not give him a break, as he expeditiously took off his clothes like a snake casting off old skin. A broken home, where love curdled into betrayal and trust crumbled into dust. These ruins do not rest. They fester, a wound that never closes, dripping sorrow into every breath, poisoning even the memory of peace. A night before Abigail was to kickstart her dream of studying medicine and surgery, she had gone to inform her uncle, but just like Jane, her uncle's sexual desire for his relatives took advantage of him yet again. Despite Abigail's fierce struggle, no one ever heard her. After the fleeting taste of success, Bright sank back into his seat, the weight of regret pressing heavier. Deep inside, he knew he should never have done what he did. He was losing himself piece by piece. Part of him ached to speak, to talk to someone about his troubles, to be understood. But shame tightened his grip, chaining him into silence. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he no longer believed he had the right to say it. But silence is a heavy burden, and no soul is built to carry it alone. Bright's shame had kept him silent, yet even shame can be broken. Healing begins not in hiding, but in reaching out, in trusting that someone will listen. As long as things remained that way, to each a secret affair aside their marriage, atrocities housed under the same roof persisted. Rachel no longer bothered her husband for sexual attention, as she had always become the first to sleep whenever they were together.
Good night, baby.
It didn't take Bright long to notice his wife's recent attitude, but couldn't tell the reason. However, he wouldn't go about that. He had got a lot of holes to fill. Besides, he still does not find her sexually attractive. In spite of that, he couldn't get his head over Rachel's attitude. As things unfolds, fragile and hesitant Jane got pregnant, but would rather keep it to herself than talk to her uncle about it.
What are you doing? Stop! No, stop. See, this is the only way to resolve this.
Jane kept the secret folded in her like a letter she dared not open. She had decided there was no other way than taking her own life, but fate stepped in small and human. It was her little sister Abigail that had come to her rescue. Abigail's rescue wasn't just a thunderclap of salvation. It would later become a dozen small and stubborn refusals to let silence rule. Their cry faded into emptiness, unanswered and unseen, as though swallowed by the silence of a cold night. Their only brother, who should have been their shelter and strength, paid no attention to their welfare, turning a blind eye to their pain, as if their suffering were nothing but shadows on the wall. Maybe because they fear what their uncle could do to them, or could it be because Austin won't be able to do anything, or probably given that Austin was carried away by his secret affairs with his uncle's wife. For Austin, he was having fun and making cool cash without having to work. He had grown weird to the extent he goes knocking on his uncle's door.
What is it, Austin? What are you doing?
Calling your phone. I saw my uncle just left. So
Okay.
I thought maybe you should come very quickly so we can start early.
What nonsense is that? Have you gone mad?
Irrespective of the fact that it was an affair she was enjoying at the time, she realized Austin was no longer respecting boundaries. To him, there were no boundaries except when his uncle was around, perhaps not his turn. Austin's insolence was unimaginable, and she was not going to have it. She sent him away while screaming at the top of her voice. What if her husband had bumped into them? How would she have been able to deal with that? Austin could be big down there, but his sense of reasoning was like that of a child, naive and unsteady, blind to the realities around him. Rachel would have to find a way to stop him before it gets out of her control. But controlling what has already been deposited in her womb will only require murder. Rachel had taken in for Austin. Of course, her husband did not touch her for months, thus it was safe to say Austin was responsible. If there was any time to put an end to her extramarital affair, no other time would have mattered more. With the proceeds from the sale of her saloon, she sent him 12 million naira.
The reason I transferred that money to you is so you can seal your lips for the rest of your life. And I want you to leave this house. Whatever transpired between us will be a secret between the both of us. I don't want my husband to know. And I don't want your siblings to know. So you need to leave this house and let it be a secret. And if you dare cross me, I believe you will complete that statement in hell.
Nevertheless, Bright, who had become an incest, was not always like that until he survived the ghastly motor accident that took the life of his brother and his wife. After surviving that traumatic accident, he withdrew himself from social activities and made a whack and lone room out of his boys' quarters. The death of his brother left him detached, alive in body but absent in spirit. Hence, Bright wouldn't stop drinking all night after work. This unresolved trauma scarred him deeply, twisting his mind until it led him down the dark path of incest. Even in his silence, his days were numbered, but he was never going to realize that until he would no longer be able to have a functioning brain. Abigail had gone to see him out of her will, and his usual manner, he couldn't wait to feast on her like the way ants would swarm over sugar.
Calm down. You don't need to stress yourself. So let's take this away. You know you're a very kind man. Yes. And you deserve everything, okay? So let's take this off first.
With a happy face, he welcomed what Abigail had in stock, only if he had known it was the last time he would ever lay his hands on her. Shortly after Abigail left, Bright wore his garment of shame and regrets, a heavy cloak that clung to him like a curse, each fold reminding him of his wrong choices. He sat in silence, gulps his drink from the glass, as though each swallow could drown his guilt. He couldn't run away from his pains and has buried his permanent solution in silence, but Bright wants to live again. If only he could travel through time and take his life back before the tragic accident. He remained in regret until at last the hidden poison began to stir in his veins, creeping through him with a slow, merciless grip. A cold shiver ran across his body, his heartbeat faltered, sweat gathered on his brow as the venom claimed its ground within him, and each breath grew heavier. Daring and fearless Abigail, who couldn't further stand the sight of her uncle, had poisoned his drink before making out with him. Months after the burial of Bright, Rachel found herself bearing a burden she never imagined, carrying the child of Austin, her late husband's nephew. Each passing day was a silent torment, as she had tried severally in desperate secrecy to rid herself of the life growing within her, yet failed. The father of the child Jane was carrying would remain a secret between her and Rachel, but Rachel was never going to tell them Austin is responsible for her own pregnancy. The circumstances surrounding Bright's death will remain a secret that may never find its way out of the lips of Abigail. The family had moved on and no autopsy was carried out. Rachel had taken full responsibility of Jane, this time as mother and a co-wife without a husband to their names. As for Austin, he is living independently and probably doing well as he had gone into business.
Hello, old friend, Airplane, my friend, I've come to talk again. This time different, I've come to say I'm done with suffering. I've tried substance and all of that, the pain never goes away.